just love me like I love you, that won't be hard to do. Alright, okay, now you win, 'cause I'm in love with you. Well, alright, okay, now you win, baby, what can I do? I'll do anything you say, it's just gonna be that way.
Good afternoon. I could do like we do in high school and elementary schools, have everybody move to the front of the class. We've got a big room here and a few people in it, but welcome. We really appreciate this. My name is Larry Warner. I'm Carson City Manager, and I'm here to welcome you, basically to state that our goal at this town hall meeting is to try to encourage more folks to get involved in the issues that face the city. That from your viewpoint, what you see are the problems and issues and questions that you may have regarding that. So we're encouraging everybody to try to ask questions that may relate to anything that happens in the city. Some of them will answer, most of them be try to answer all of them. I guess there may be a few we can't, depending on further information. But I'm going to, at this time, turn it over to Marina Works, the Deputy City Manager, who has kind of put this together, and I'll let her take it from there. But thank you and welcome.
So good evening, everyone, and what I'm going to do first is tell you the process that we've developed for tonight. We did receive some questions ahead of time, and we will be reading those questions and answered by our panel. Additionally, when you came in the room tonight, you should have been handed a piece of paper and a pencil if you didn't have one. And you are welcome, and you can have as many papers as you want. It's open to as many questions as anybody would like. And what the plan is to write your question on the piece of paper. And we have people around the room that will collect those from you and bring it up to the moderator. And what we're going to do is go through all the questions that we have, and then at the end of that time, we're going to have anybody that'd like to come up to one of the microphones located at the front of the two main aisles. If you'd like to come up and follow up on questions that were asked, maybe we didn't give you enough information, or maybe a question that was asked prompted another question for you that you would like to ask. And what I'd like to do at this time is I'm going to introduce our panel to you, and I'm going to start all the way over at my far right. So at the first table is Lee Plemmel, and he is the Director of Planning and basically all the operations that are over at the Brick building that we commonly call the Brick, which is the Business Resource Center. And that does include redevelopment, planning, business license, building, anything along those lines. Next to Lee is Nick Providente. Nick is the Finance Director for Carson City. Next to Nick is Melanie Bruchetta. Melanie is the HR Director. Next to Melanie is Stacy Giomi, the fire chief. I will be sitting next to Stacy once I get down there, and then next in line is Larry Warner, city manager. Then we have John Wilkinson. He's the information technology director for the city. And we have Roger Mollendorf. He's the director of Parks and Recreation. Darren Schultz is the deputy director for Public Works. We have Nikki Aker. She's the health department director. And the very closest to me here is Sheriff Kenny Furlong. And at this time, what I'd like to do is introduce our moderator. I'm really happy that our moderator agreed to do this for us this evening. I think it helps to give us kind of an intermediary, if you will, so this isn't completely run by city staff. So I'm very happy to introduce to you John Kinkella. John comes to us from Western Nevada College, where he is the Dean of Students. And for that point, I'm just going to let John take it away.
Very good. Thank you, Marina. Welcome, everyone. So we received a number of questions by email, and we'll start with those, and then if you have additional questions you'd like, just write them down and we'll get them up here. So the first question for this evening by email is there a disaster team responsible to aid in the event of a natural disaster, such as a severe earthquake or fire, since recent events have proved that a possibility of this may exist? We'll open up to anyone on the panel. Fire chief, perhaps?
I guess I'll do that. Is that working right? Can you guys hear me? Okay, I don't think that made any difference. The short answer is that we don't, I mean, the question is there a disaster team? Really, in terms of disasters or handling emergencies, the whole city would function as a team. Sheriff, fire, we handle emergencies on a day-to-day basis, but in a large-scale event, other agencies would certainly chip in. The health department has a huge role in disaster preparedness, especially as it pertains to, obviously, health-related issues. Public Works has a huge role in disaster preparedness as it pertains to flooding or weather-related emergencies. So the shortest answer is that the city does have a disaster plan. It's a comprehensive disaster plan. It's a disaster plan that meets federal and state guidelines. And we have a team of employees from all departments of the city. In fact, there's no department that isn't represented on managing large-scale disasters. Every department within the city has people that contribute to filling a role when we operate or stand up an emergency operations center. So I think that covers it, but if anyone else has anything they'd like to add, certainly they can.
I'll add to that. So at the health department, we conduct drill and exercises such as the upcoming, what we call a pod exercise, a point of distribution exercise, and that's where the free flu shots are administered. And that is an exercise to practice our skills and ability to vaccinate a large number of people or to distribute medications if that were needed to a large number of people. And we also, at the health department, we have the Medical Reserve Corps, which is a group of citizens who they help our community be healthy and prepared and resilient in the case of a disaster. And that Medical Reserve Corps is approximately 60% medical and 40% non-medical.
Great. Thank you both. Question 2 is directed to the sheriff. What is the update on current actions in progress toward the reduction of traffic fatalities on Highway 50? Will that provide crosswalks or a safer means of crossing, especially since there are young kids and large crowd local teams that frequently gather at Highway 50 near Mills Park, since there has already been 2 pedestrian deaths and many more witnessed illegal jaywalkings? Thank you for the obvious increase in patrol. I'm sure if I noticed, other people have. Great job.
Thank you. The Highway 50 corridor became a significant issue for us over the past year, and I was very, very pleased that Nevada Highway Patrol stepped in and joined with us along Lyon County and Churchill County to really try to turn the pages on what's been going on. We've seen some absolutely horrific accidents up on the highway, both on the Lyon County and Carson City side. Obviously, on Carson City, we're dealing with a much smaller stretch of highway, so it really was attacked as a task force type of an approach. And as we put it out very early on, there were three primary objectives that we wanted to be. And that was to engage the media, the mass media, so that we could get information out to everybody as to what we were trying to do, what we were trying to achieve, and really have the drivers taking on that major responsibility of safety on the highway. The second objective was to engage with law enforcement, and yes, it kind of stings in the pocketbook a little bit, but that engagement was to step up enforcement activities all along Highway 50. We were primarily concerned with Carson City through the Dayton area. As it turned out, Highway Patrol was concerned with a much larger stretch, and that was Carson City all the way over to Fallon, and then north up towards Fernley. We joined on with their theme of zero tolerance to zero fatalities. I believe very, very strongly that we can make the difference. The third objective was to engage with Nevada Department of Transportation and start studying the highway for alterations to it that would significantly improve on the safety of the highway. That assessment was due to begin and in fact was just completed in August. And as it developed, NDOT asked that we participate not only in the Carson City to Fallon area, but they wanted to assess the area from Carson City up to South Shore, South Lake Tahoe, because that stretch of Highway 50 has been just as much of a significant issue. The Nevada Appeal and other local media stations, I think Carson Now covered it as well, has publicized the preliminary results. We are looking at significant changes on that highway. We are looking at significant changes that will improve the safety of the highway. Unfortunately, when we talk about spending money, those changes come much slower. I hope that by December, with the stepped up enforcement and the public attention that has been afforded to it, that we can show some progress already just by ourselves as a community, slowing each other down, staying off the distracted devices such as cell phones, and our commuter traffic accident rates going down.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Third question. I just used the online payment option to pay my water bill. It was very convenient due to not having to write a check or get a stamp and instant completion. The downfall, of course, is the $5 fee. Will you work to get this price down to a more acceptable level, like $1.50 or at the most $2.50?
Yeah, I think we'll ask Al Kramer, our treasurer, if he could step forward and answer that question. He's in the audience with us tonight.
Carson does have an internet way of making payments. You can either choose to make an electronic check online, or you can choose to pay by credit card. The credit card is through a third party that does charge a convenience fee. The convenience fee is about 3%. So if there was a $5 charge, it was $130 or something like that was being charged. We don't control that. We don't make any money off of it. Those are between, in a sense, even though we direct people to it, it is between a person who chooses to pay that way and pay the fee or not to. I think it's, personally, I think it's a pretty high rate, and I wouldn't pay it myself. So, but it is, some people have to pay by, and I'm going to say, if you're paying fines and fees and you have to pay a fine by a particular date or have a warrant out for you, then it's worth the money. If you're paying your water bill, it's probably worth it to pay the late fee and do it as an electronic check. But having said that, we get a lot of people paying their water bill through credit card too. Again, it's not a fixed rate, and we don't control the rate, but we do have a lot of people using it. Does that answer the question?
Okay, thank you. The next question. Could you list the total amount of taxes and fees each homeowner in Carson City can expect to pay?
I could probably answer that one. And I think the answer to that question is basically it depends. It depends on, there's two main taxes that folks in Carson City or Nevada would pay. It's your property taxes and your sales taxes. Your property taxes are based on the assessed value of the house. So there really isn't a one-size-fits-all. It just depends on the value of your house. And on sales taxes, again, it depends on the amount of goods that you purchase. There's also some other basic taxes that we pay. We pay franchise fees on utilities, and we pay automobile government services tax. So again, it just depends on the value of the automobiles, and it depends on how much electric or gas that you use in your residence. So I think that's kind of
very good. Number 5. How can the Board of Supervisors justify approving a settlement of $41,500 for the animal services debacle? You said you were, quote, closed for training and, quote, reviewing policy and, quote, fired the manager. Isn't that demonstrating an effort to improve? That is a lot of money you just spent.
I'll answer that one. The last part of the question first, I guess, is the best. Yes, we've done a lot of changes at the animal shelter and how we operate out there, a lot of it to make sure that we don't have another occurrence of what we had occur over the last month or so. The settlement, it's really something I can't discuss here. It will be discussed at the board meeting on September 19th, when we can get into the details at the Board of Supervisors meeting as best we can. But we have reached a settlement with a tentative settlement with the involved party who had the dog, and it's what we feel is a fair amount at this stage, but again, I can't get into the details on that.
Okay, thank you. This question is for the sheriff, and it's 2 questions. I'll read the first one first. 1, recently you announced some internal promotions. To me, your current management structure now looks like an upside-down pyramid, top-heavy with management and not enough people on the streets. With current scheduling, how many deputies are assigned to patrol at any given time? Why does it appear that NHP is now the primary traffic patrol in our town?
To the point of the promotions, the most recent promotion referred to in this question, I believe, is a lieutenant to the grade of captain. That was in recognition of significant accomplishments and advanced training, as well as certifications. Within the department's strategic plan, our 4th goal of 5 is that we employ the best officers that we possibly can to serve in this community. The promotion was awarded from the grade of lieutenant to captain, but that promotion did not have any impact on the management structure whatsoever. It was in concurrence with our collective bargaining agreements, and it did not fiscally impact the community whatsoever. Instead, the promotion provides for the best law enforcement leadership that we can possibly provide. As it pertains to the question of structure and not enough officers on the street, there are 92 sworn positions in the sheriff's office, including myself. Of that, 4% are assigned to the management team. 15% are assigned to investigations and special operations, 29% to the jail, and 49% to the operations division. For anybody who's counting up, I'm still 3% short. That 3% are assigned to other specialized functions such as the courts. Within the patrol division, there is 1 division head and 6 sergeants. Those 6 sergeants ensure that there is 1 supervisor on duty 24 hours and 37 deputies. What that normally suggests is that there will be anywhere from 5 to 7 deputies on our streets in Carson at any given time. The collective bargaining agreement in Carson City states that there will be a minimum of 4, but this administration has continuously stressed and enforced a 5 officers on the street minimum to continuously patrol Carson City and each of its geographical regions. It should be noted that we've been through some tough times, and taxes are not a nice thing to talk about by anybody, but for each position we end up having to pay considerably. I don't think that we're actually through this recession, if you want to call it that we've been through. But as a result of that, the Sheriff's Office has lost 19 positions, and 2 of those were at the top management level. As to why it appears NHP is the primary traffic patrol in town, the answer is simple. With the loss of so many positions from 2006 to 2010, just staying within budgets, the Sheriff's Office has had to eliminate a traffic management team as a priority, just so that we could contain our minimum staffing the way it is. I hope to regain regain some of those functions in the economic recovery. On the brighter side, since the patrol division deputies are answering on the average of 1,500 calls a month and still finding time to issue 400 to 500 citations and 300 to 400 warnings per month, it can hardly be said that they're doing less.
Thank you, Sheriff. Second question, also directed to you. I recently called your department to inquire about who is responsible for unregistered cars. There are several parked in my neighborhood, and anyone looking sees them all over town, driven daily without current registration and in some cases without even a license plate. The person at your department said, "What are we supposed to do, knock on their door and ask them to register the car?" He also said it wasn't the responsibility of your department. I called DMV, NHP, and the governor's office. All said it was the responsibility of your department. I called back to your department and was told that everyone else misled me, that the NHP is responsible. So no resolution to people not registering their cars and presumably driving without insurance.
There's a short answer to that. It is the Sheriff's Office responsibilities. Here are 700 citations that were issued in 2013, and we're only 3/4 of the way through the year. The Sheriff's Department does do that. As to why someone would be so frustrated, it's beyond me. Anytime somebody feels frustration with a government entity, it is appropriate to bring it to the administrators, to the department heads, to get the answers to their questions. Because to put it very, very, very bluntly, I don't back the runaround. The straightforward answer is what should have been given.
Very good, thank you. All right. The next question, does the Ormsby House have a building permit with no expiration date? Okay, what is the city doing currently about this eyesore and irresponsible owner? We've been misled by the owners for over 10 years. How many times have we been told it will soon open? And it seems that the city is allowing the owners to thumb their noses at those of us living here and being embarrassed by this project. The owner once threatened to tear it down. That would have been preferable to the 10 years we've been forced to look at this mess. Can something be done to shed light on this owner who obviously doesn't care much about the citizens of this town? And this is directed to Lee.
Thank you. I'll start on this one from the perspective of the building permit side, and I'm Lee Plemmel with the Community Development Department. In terms of building permits, actually building permits are valid for 18 months with availability of 18 months administrative extensions, which can be a total of 3 years each. As this project has been under construction for more than 10 years now, they've actually gone through multiple resubmittals of building permits where they have to pay new fees, bring the project up to new codes. And so they have actually maintained valid building permits through the process, and they are not valid indefinitely. Let me see, was there another part of that question? So actually at this point, and I was going to point out too, the last permit for the Ormsby House was issued in April 2012, so it will expire in April 2015.
Okay, very good. The second question, also directed to you, Lee, is how many more years will the Jack's Bar building stand empty? This thing is a terrible eyesore across the street from our state legislature. I think it's the same owner as the Ormsby House. Does the city or state have any grounds to seize this building by eminent domain and for something to happen? I remember the city considering a similar move years ago for another blighted property now cleaned up. The state leases property all over town and be an excellent tenant if this building were to be used as an office.
Okay, the Jacksboro property is owned by the same property owners as owns the Ormsby House, Cubics Ormsby LLC. This is a property that's located in the Carson City Historic District. The whole street isn't there, but this particular property is in the district, and obviously it is a very old historic property. Right now, and it's actually on the National Register of Historic Places. The building is currently unoccupied, but on the inside, the walls have been secured for safety reasons. So to the question, and actually I think the second question first, does the city or state, of course we're speaking for the city tonight, have any grounds to seize this building by eminent domain to have something happen there? The city has some pretty limited ability to use eminent domain to forcibly purchase a property from a private property owner. It is generally used when the new use of the building is going to be for a public purpose. Carson City has never used eminent domain in the history, and this property is also in the redevelopment district, which is a potential reason to use eminent domain. But again, in Carson City, the forceful purchase of property from a property owner has never been used. I suppose it is possible to do that and identify a use for it. However, as I said, it hasn't been done, and we haven't been approached to take that approach on this property, which kind of answers the second part of the question. As long in terms of how many years will it stand empty, and unfortunately, we can't compel a property owner necessarily to do something with the property, as with some other properties downtown in the past that unfortunately stayed vacant for a long time before they were done, before they were redeveloped and opened up again, like where the High Sierra Brewery is. That's an example where that was over a decade that was closed down. There's really not much the city legally has the ability to do to force somebody to do something with the property.
Okay, very good, thank you. And the third question also for you, Lee, is I'm concerned about sidewalks. All over town, sidewalks begin and end abruptly. Try walking any street in the inner core for 5 or 6 blocks, like King or Telegraph or Washington. The lack of sidewalks forces people, including children and the elderly, to walk on the streets. Last week, some middle schoolers were nearly hit on West Telegraph Street in North Richmond by a fast driver. The kids were walking on the street. On one side of the street, there was no sidewalk. On the other side, someone has a basketball hoop blocking the sidewalk. It's been there for years. Can someone do something about this code violation? So our kids are forced onto the street. Is there a plan to someday complete sidewalks in town? I know they are expensive, but there's a plan. I'd sure feel better. I don't know if that's you, Lee, or not.
The sidewalks fall under public works,
Okay,
so I'll go ahead and answer that. It's a very good question. For the most part, we do have a program where we go in and fix and retrofit and reconstruct sidewalks. That's done in our streets division. And we're certainly aware of the gaps that we have in the sidewalks around town, particularly in the older neighborhoods. The real problem comes down to funding and what it requires to go in and fix these and retrofit them. We currently spend right around $100,000 a year on our sidewalk maintenance program, and we could easily spend $1 million a year. Unfortunately, the money that we get for sidewalks and street repair and maintenance is primarily based off of gas tax. And as you're aware, with the downturn in the economy and gas sales going down, that funding source has gotten worse, not better. Meanwhile, the cost of maintaining streets and sidewalks has went up. So we're in a little bit of a dilemma as to what we can do and trying to get more done. Within the last 18 months, we have brought to our Regional Transportation Commission as well as our Board of Supervisors the current condition of our streets and sidewalks, and that informing them that our current level of funding, that it's deteriorating. We're not keeping up with it, and the failures are it's going to get worse. We can't maintain the level of service that we currently have. We are continuing to work on a program there to somehow come up with more funding to fix that problem, and it's not an easy solution, and ultimately involves a tax or increased revenue to make it better. As far as the question regarding the basketball hoop on the sidewalk, that is a code violation, and our code group working in Lee's office, those are the type of things that they get involved with, and that would need to be removed, and or a citation could be issued. Basically, where we're coming from is anytime something like that gets reported to us and or Lee's group, we would go out there and get that removed. So please bring that forward to our attention at any time. Staff currently now, when items like that are seen, we're aware of it, and we take the correct steps to mitigate it. As far as sidewalks, one of the things I wanted to mention was that we go out and we seek grants from the state and federal agencies, and they're usually tied to ADA reasons, and we have been very successful in the past with getting grants to help fix sidewalks. The problem with a grant is it's specific to how you spend that money and where you spend that money. That doesn't mean we don't go seek it, but when you see a sidewalk being built in certain areas, typically that's grant money and it's required to fix that particular sidewalk. We're not allowed to spend it in different parts of the city. But pursuing grants, no matter where they're at, is very high on our list.
Very well, thank you. For Roger, this is a comment. Years ago, the community center pool had fewer activities and it was generally a quiet place. Now there are scores of activities to choose from for all ages and interests, and registering online is a breeze. The exercise classes offered have made a big difference in my life, and I am grateful for them, and to all of you in the Parks Department for an expansion of the offerings.
Well, thank you very much. For the record, Roger Moldorf, Parks and Recreation Director. It's nice to hear that comment. We've been working hard, our staff has been working very diligently here in the last several years to try to increase some of the recreational offerings that we have in the community by the use of using contractors. A lot of this happened here in the community center and also in the aquatics facility as well. And at first I was kind of concerned maybe it was a complaint that the facilities are too noisy and they're not enjoying themselves as much as they used to, but it's good to have lots of activity in those facilities, and we hope that we can increase that diversification of programs.
Thank you, Roger. This is for the fire chief. For many years, I've been perplexed as to why a Carson City fire underlined engine always accompanies the ambulance on non-underlined fire emergency runs. And I don't remember having seen a reasonable justification. In addition to twice the siren noise, the heavy engine gulps fuel and adds to roadway abuse and air pollution. Have you ever been trapped behind one at a long signal light with your driver's side window open?
Yeah, actually I have. And the emission standards have gone up considerably as to how it used to be several years ago. But I suspect that the bigger question is, why a fire truck goes to a medical call. And it's not, there's not a one-word answer to that. A lot of people don't realize that the only paramedic service in the community is provided through the fire department. So if you need a paramedic or if you need an ambulance in Carson City, it comes from the fire department. There isn't a private company that provides emergency medical services. Our ambulances are very busy. We have 3 ambulances in Carson City, and we have 3 fire engines that are staffed in Carson City. So there could be a lot of reasons why a fire engine would go to a medical emergency. It could be that we have no ambulances available. Last year, we ran nearly 9,000 total calls between those units.
and those are EMS and fire calls. So if an ambulance is not available, we send the closest engine. And oftentimes an ambulance is coming from Lyon County or Douglas County because we've run out of ambulances. And that happens fairly often. The other thing that you should know is that our medical calls are all prioritized thanks to the dispatchers in our public safety answering point, our 911 communication center. So our calls are prioritized based on a series of a few questions that communications operator asks the person calling or the person experiencing the medical emergency. And based on the severity of that medical emergency, we may elect to send, we have a protocol, and we follow that protocol to send additional resources. If you've ever been to the emergency room, I think you realize that there isn't just one or two people dealing with you when you have a serious medical problem in the emergency room. You have a room full of people. And to properly provide medical care, it takes a lot of people. There's a lot to be done on serious medical emergencies or automobile accidents or something like that. And so those fire trucks are fully equipped and licensed advanced life support ambulances. They have the same things with the exception of a gurney that the ambulances have on them. And so we're beginning that treatment as quickly as we can. The reason the firefighters, and this is sort of the question I get asked fairly often, is why can't the folks in the fire truck just hop off the fire truck and get into the ambulance? And you would think maybe logically that's the best way to do it, because then you get everybody there and you're not taking that big fire truck. The problem with that is we only have 3 fire engines. If I take those people off the fire truck and put them in the ambulance, and a transport and treatment time is about 40 minutes, let's say, I've lost an engine for that full 40 minutes. If the engine accompanies the ambulance to the medical emergency, as soon as that patient is stabilized and loaded in the back of an ambulance, that engine is immediately available. And I'm not losing that 20 or 30 minutes of transport time to get them to the hospital, wait while the hospital has to have a room that's available for us to take the patient off our gurney and transfer them to the hospital. So I think I kind of covered it.
Yes, thank you. This is a question for the sheriff.
It was getting pretty comfortable.
This one, yes. Having lived in many towns and cities before Carson City, CC, I can say without a doubt that I have never seen so many patrol cars on the streets and citations given out to motorists. I did a little research and discovered that Nevada State has the highest number of traffic citations per capita in the country. In addition, I have experienced CC Traffic Court inundated with motorists having their tickets reduced or thrown out by the city attorney's office. Some clerks have told me that they are frustrated since many of these tickets are for very minor infractions, if not even frivolous. Continued on the next page. In my opinion, the city is wasting valuable taxpayers' money on unnecessary patrol officers and wasted traffic court time. Higher fines need to be given to what NDOT has identified as the main reasons for serious traffic injuries. That is impaired and distracted drivers. Either give the patrol officers something serious to do or lay off a bunch of them.
Wow. How about okay? You know, it's interesting because several years ago we did a little bit of an informal study based on the data that we were pulling in, what activities our officers were doing. This was back when we actually had officers assigned to do traffic enforcement. And it was surprising. There was no correlation between the tickets and the number of accidents that were occurring around town. But what we did find was there was a similarity in the number of citations that were issued or road vehicles pulled off the roadway for no registration, no insurance, those types of infractions, and the reduction of accidents. So I think that in all, my statement to the comment is that I do believe that traffic enforcement is a necessary function of town. For every accident that does occur, there's somebody's life who's been disrupted, albeit the other guy might be a DUI driver or whatever the serious case as was pointed out. But somebody else's life has been turned upside down. Their car has been destroyed, they've been put out, they have to find alternative ways to get to work and take care of their families. So that does concern me. And I do believe that our management persons have a very, very serious role to play here in this town. That not only includes traffic, but that includes our pedestrians. And so that's why we target that activity. Pedestrians get killed, we can't turn that around. Drivers get killed, we can't turn that around. So our intention is to save lives.
Very good, thank you. That was the questions that we have received by email. If you have any written questions you'd like to submit, you could have those sent up. If not, we'll open it up to the floor to ask the questions directly from the microphone.
Hi, my name. Oh. Hello. Oh. Hi, my name's Sam Burkett. I'm a student at Carson High School. My question is: every morning there's a traffic buildup at the intersection of Solomon and East Robinson Street. We were wondering if you guys were going to add any new traffic controls around there, or keep it more safe for our students.
Very good, thank you.
I'd be more than happy to answer that question. Just last week, myself, the school district superintendent, Mr. Stokes, the principal from the school, and some neighbors actually sat out on the corner and watched the behavior of what was going on at that intersection. It poses us some very, very significant challenges. From that meeting, we met together with the regular city staff meeting, discussed the issue of Solomon and Robinson. It has been a long-standing traffic jam, and that's primarily due to the number of drop-offs, off-site parking, and the heavy traffic flow on Solomon itself. We are looking at it. I can't tell you that there's going to be some immediate actions. I did not see, based on our observations, a real quick, easy answer for you. And one of the, well, actually two of them, was building a crossway over the top for the kids crossing the street, and I just don't see that being done. The second thing was a traffic signal that could help. The problem with it is that, as we observed, and I've done this a couple of times over the last month, you're talking about 2 periods of time extending about 20 minutes. And that's that period just before school and right after school. And I don't know that there is sufficient cause, because of those 2 20-minute periods, to invest in the enormous cost that it would take to install a traffic signal at that location. But I can tell you that we did discuss it immediately following our meetings out there.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further questions from the audience? Very well. Maybe I could have the Assistant City Manager come back up and close it out for us.
Sure. Okay, really? No more questions? This is your chance. Okay, well, we really appreciate you coming tonight. Obviously, there's a few here, but I've always been told that whoever shows up are the right people to show up. So I hope you found this helpful. You know, we don't know how often should we continue to do this type of thing, and so those of you that did show up and to give us some feedback in any way, whether you want to leave it at one of the tables as you're leaving or speak to any one of us as you're going, we'd really like to know if you found this helpful. And this was being televised, so we don't know how many people are viewing at home, and hopefully there was a fair amount, because I think it gives a good opportunity for you as citizens to be able to voice whatever concerns you have, and a way for us as city staff to find out what is on your minds, because otherwise we don't really know, and we don't want to guess. We really want to be able to hit the heart of the city and be able to have discussions on what the citizens would like to know. Yes, come on up, Lisa. Good for you.
Well, my name is Lisa Schutte, and I'm with Carson Animal Services Initiative. And first of all, I appreciate you doing this. And my guess is I'm actually surprised. I thought it would be packed. That said, sometimes it takes a while to get things going. I would really encourage you to do this on a regular basis, because questions beget questions. And I'm back there writing and thinking and, kind of listening. And as I heard your answers, that helped answer some of my questions. But also, I think this gives people an opportunity, like, for example, with the animal services and Cassie, it gives people an opportunity to find out really what is happening and what some options are to help solve problems. Because I think we need to move beyond the finger pointing and the assumptions, and we need to really work toward the bridge building. And I believe, honestly, and especially with Cassie, which is a very long project, that as we're raising money to build, or to help Carson City build a shelter, some of the concerns in terms of animal services and how it is being run and what is happening, I think the solutions will evolve because the community will be playing a more greater part in the process. And so I just appreciate what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I think that's a big point of why we wanted to do this tonight, because we do want the community involvement. And I think that we have the talent, we have the citizens in this town that really can put some minds together and find solutions to some of the problems we have. And I think we need you. We all need you, and we want your input. And that is what this is about. Anybody else would like to make any further comments? Again, this is your chance.
Marina, do you mind if I say
No,
something?
not at all. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, and the sheriff alluded to this earlier, and we would encourage you or anyone you know to call any of us department directors with any questions you have any time. I mean, you don't have to wait for this to happen. It's very clear to me, and I think it's very clear to all of us on the table up here, that we work for you and we're here to answer to you. So if you have a question, or as in the sheriff's case, you felt like you were getting the runaround, we're all approachable. And you should do that. You should call us. Because if something isn't working in his department, he wants to know. And I guarantee you, I want to know, and we all want to know. So you don't have to wait for this forum to ask us a question. We're happy to answer, and meet you one-on-one, and because we want you to be satisfied with what we're doing for you.
And I appreciate that, Stacy. And I think just to kind of tag on to that is there's many ways to contact us, and sometimes we don't know the best way to contact you. So if you have other ideas, I mean, we have a web page, we have a citywide Facebook, we have some departments that have Facebook, and if there's other avenues that we're not tapping into that you feel we should, we would really like to hear from you and know how we can better reach out to the citizens. And we have another comment.
And I'd like to make a suggestion. If there's anybody in the audience that has written out a question but would prefer not to come up to the microphone and speak, if you hold that up, I'll come get it and bring it up, and they can read it and answer it. If there's anybody that has a question. Nope. All right. Thank you.
And then I guess before we close, is anybody else on the panel, does anybody else have any closing comments they'd like to say?
I think John and Melanie should say something.
I think they should too. And we purposely did invite the HR department and the IT department because they are very vital parts of our city government, and who knows what question you might have had of them. So that is, it was very important for us that they were here today. So anybody?
About one of the closing comments that I would make, and these meetings are very, very important to us, because this group up here collectively, plus many more, Larry, right, meets on a weekly basis, and there's a lot of things that are going on in Carson that a lot of folks probably don't know about. We're moving very, very fast. Having these opportunities to talk about them keep us on track. I like to say that we believe in everything we're doing. That's why we're doing it. But if something's going wrong, it takes somebody to stand up and say, hey, this is where you're off track, or this is where you're off center. That way we can get those course corrections done before we run into a brick wall. Larry?
Thank you, Sheriff. I guess close out?
Sure.
Yes, I'd like to thank you again, and I'd also like to thank the department heads and the elected officials that showed up here today. And I've purposely kept my mouth shut because periodically I get into trouble. So I thought from this point it would be best, I know, yeah, all the time. But really to hear from your department heads, you've got a terrific team here. I mean, none of us are inexpendable, but we have really got a great group. And they're really, truly committed to try to make this community a much better community, a safer community. The sheriff was talking to me today and this over the weekend over the Brew Fest in the downtown, and I understand it was hugely successful. It's those kinds of things that we really want to try to encourage in the community. I guess not necessarily drinking, but activities is what we're really saying. But truly, we really want to try to reach out to the community. We really want to hear from you on what are issues facing you. We think from our standpoint, we see things happening that we think are a problem or an issue or whatever, but that's not necessarily the same thing that you feel. And we need to know that. We need to get feedback about, what we're doing, how are we doing it. We may be making the best widgets in the world, but nobody wants a widget. And that's the kind of feedback we need to be a better organization for you. So anyway, thank you again, and I thank my staff, and I thank the elected officials, both up here and in the audience. And have a great evening.
And I'm going to try one more thing. Okay. I know that Sam came forward and he's part of leadership at Carson City, and I believe there's a couple of leadership kids. One of the main things we need to hear from too is the youth. Anyway, either one of you others would come up and say any comment, anything that you can say about Carson City, good, bad, question, anything at all. We're really nice people. You don't even have to say it right. Yay.
Hello, my name is Jody Ostrander. I'm with Sam with the Carson High Leadership. I'm also the student representative on the Carson City School District Vision Steering Committee, And one of our goals with that steering committee is to create those community partnerships. So my question to you guys is, in what ways can the students at Carson High School and Pioneer High School and even in the middle schools learn about what you guys do for those interested in getting involved with our city government?
That's a great question.
We're actually working on a response for that right now. As a lot of the folks know, because it's been very, very well publicized, Carson City is waiting on the determination as to whether or not a grant can be awarded for additional police officers in the schools. And we try to build relationships with the youth here, because I think that those relationships are our investments in the community, and I think that that's what you're asking about. And it's very, very important that we open the doors to a brighter future. At the kickoff meetings for the school district's plans, it really sensed me that we can open our doors and get our students in, especially geared towards their senior projects, and allow the students inside of our four walls to get a better idea of what it is we're doing. And I think that Mr. Stokes' plan as a school district and as a community to the greater good is going to benefit over the next year as we kick off a lot of these types of activities that you're asking for.
Great, thank you.
And another thing is the health department, Nikki kind of mentioned in passing the MRC, which is the Medical Reserve Corps. There is a component of that they're trying to get a group together of youth. And I believe you have to be at least 16, but that's a place that the health department really wants to partner with youth in that area, and that these do not have to be people even interested in a medical field. And additionally, there's a health occupations class that we really want to partner in. And then I think additionally, there's almost many departments here that would be more than willing to help out in any kind of partnership and I don't know if, Roger, you have anything specific to say on parks, but I think the partnerships that we have with the youth and youth groups in town are vital to our growth. And so we would like some ideas on how, we're more than willing to work with you, and the staff's more than willing to work with you. And so if we can somehow get together and figure out what that looks like, we'd be more than happy to be involved.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, well, absolutely, come on. Yeah, Tammy, sure, come on right up to the mic. And then Lisa, you can come right after that.
So that's a great question. My name is Tammy Westergaard. I'm the interim director of the Carson City Library, also a part of city government and services. And we have been a part of, exactly, through our digital learning center and all the tools that we have in our @2 space, which is on the second floor, which is why we call it @2, but we have tons of technology, and we're partnering with a couple of your teachers currently, Ms. Fagundis in the honors history class, Mr. Hoke with the history of rock and music and all those kinds of things. So the Carson City Library is very involved with, obviously, our kids, not only with the technology, but also as a tremendous resource, as the weekend place, the after-school place, where you guys are always welcome, and not only can we help you get your work done, but we want to bring you over to our side so that you can help us teach the community. There's a lot of range in skills in terms of digital literacy within the members of our community, and everybody always has something to learn about technology, and so having a core of volunteers and youth and everybody teaching everybody the hottest new app or how to turn the darn thing on. So you know where to find me. And also, just so everybody knows, we have a table out in the lobby, and we're currently in the process of gathering feedback for a patron user survey, and we want to talk to folks who both come to the library and that they're not at the library. We want to know why. So thank all of you guys for coming out. Come get our stuff. There's stickers back there that ask the question, what do you geek? Meaning, what are you into? I'm into baking pies.
And just to add to what you said, Carson Animal Services Initiative, it is just one nonprofit, one organization that offers community members an opportunity to make a difference in their community in regards to animal shelters. And animal shelters are not just about animals, although of course that is the main focus. But we have animals in our community that are sometimes released due to a family not being able to keep the dog or the cat or the chicken, whatever. And if our facility is too small, what do you do with that animal? And so even an owner surrender, they're trying to do the right thing. If we don't have room for that animal, you can't take the animal. And so really that's what it's about. But there's also the community concern about animals running at large, animals running in traffic, strays, dog bites, feral cats, all of that. The reason I'm saying this is we're separate from the city, but we're helping the city. And so I meet with people within the city and I share concerns because we have now become a voice for the community in terms of concerns about how or what's happening in the shelter. And we invite high schoolers, we invite middle schoolers. We want you to be a part of the process of making a difference, part of the process of volunteerism and community action. So please, please, please know that you are very welcome.
Oh, God, I'm not going to come off.
Well, good evening, and thank you for your comment. Let me just say that from my perspective, I've been on the school board for a long time, and now I'm the mayor, and I do look at education as being a community exercise and not just a school board or exercise. And I think it's important that we do have an integration of our education system throughout our community, not only in internships and things like that. And so one of the things that I think is past due that I'm going to be asking the board and our city manager and our staff up here to do is have a joint meeting with our school board to make sure that we are acting as one community and where we can vet some of the issues about how we get our youth more engaged in our city government, as well as what concerns they may have with our education system, but so we could act as a community. So your question is very well put, and hopefully we will be getting this joint meeting on. We've done it in the past. I think it's time to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming. And I want to thank our moderator, John Kinkella, and hopefully we'll spend at least a few minutes in the lobby looking at some of the booths we have set up. Thank you.